Hey, it's Monday. You may be watching this at a different time, but grow group leaders and parents, I hope that this is useful for you today. I'm going to be very brief. Here's what I want you to see. Your students are studying Hosea 11:12. So that's chapter 11, verse 12, through chapter 13, verse 3. And so it's Monday. I have really just hit the surface of Hosea, this Hosea passage. But one thing I just want to encourage you with is the fact that there's so many things that we're doing in our worship service that connect back to what we're doing on Sunday night with students in worship service. So, for instance, the main thing I want you to take away from this video is God's doing things again, and his people are doing things again. So, Jacob, he deceived people and did a lot of things wrong, right? You know, Jacob is not the guy you would look to as, oh, he's the man of integrity. Well, we're brought to the story of Jacob again in the passage that I just told you from Hosea, and it's outlining a story of redemption from deceit, lies, idolatry, all of the above. And we see that Jacob struggles. He runs from his brother, who he had this basically kind of like a feud with. And we're seeing the same thing happen again. I had a student come up to me and ask me about the book of Exodus. And he's like, man, it just seems like, or he was hinting at the things of like, it seems like things are just happening over again. And I was like, yeah, it is. And it's doing the same thing today. God's people are still in deception and lies, sinning and guilty before a holy and living God. In fact, the people of Israel were guilty. It says in Hosea 12:14, Ephraim has provoked bitter anger, so his Lord will leave his blood guilt on him and repay him for his contempt. And that blood guilt, that word, was something that was attributed to their sin of worshiping Baal, but it was considered like a capital offense. Like they deserved to die for their sin. In fact, it says it again in 13:1. When Ephraim spoke, there was trembling. He was exalted in Israel, but he incurred guilt. There's that word guilt again, through Baal and died. And so this is the reminder of the gospel, again, is that we deserve the penalty of our own sin, and we deserve to have blood shed and die, and for there to be a death on our part. But yet Jesus was the one that died. He was the one by his blood that took on our guilt, our shame, and our pain so that we could be restored, so that we could prevail in our struggles, so that we could prevail when we struggle with deception, lying, and all of those different things, and other sin and idolatry and worshiping other gods. So the same thing happens again as God's given the same message. He wants us to return to the Lord, and that's exactly what he gives us in Hosea 12:6. But you must return to your Lord, maintain love and justice, and always put your hope in God. So grow group leaders and parents, as you're rereading this, reread through the story of Jacob and then remind students how it's being fleshed out again, but yet it's different because Jacob has a moment of where he's restored intimacy with God, but yet the people of Israel and Judah in this passage in Hosea don't have that intimacy yet, and God's calling them return to him, and God is calling us to the same thing, to return in intimacy to him.